Everybody.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, so what is really wrong from leading? I wonder how on I want take do when I get Sha. And we got to help us, God to help all of us, Sha. Okay, so let's see, on to the class for today. Before I start, please, those who had issues with the last class with the DOM manipulation and all, raise your hands if you had any issues with that, if you're confused. So at least I know how I'm actually going to start the class. Okay, Omotayo, first. Omotayo, not only you. Okay, okay, Victor. Okay, okay, Omotayo and Victor. Okay, any other person? So which means everybody for Nana Badu. All right, so Omotayo, Victor, sorry, what were your confusions? Okay, Chidiogo, you too. All right. Let me start with Omotayo first. What was confusing you?
Hello, good morning, sir.
Omotayo, yeah, good morning.
Yeah, I actually I wanted to go through the stuff back, like the recorded class. Maybe I'll be able to get them, but I've not really find it on the recorded chat, recorded videos.
Okay, okay. Is
Sorry, let
that
me come in
okay?
there. Have you checked the playlist, the web development playlist?
Yes, I checked it last night.
Okay, I'll look into that now.
So
Okay. So just for the sake of this class, what exactly was the issue?
don't worry, I will get back to the video once I get it.
Okay, all right, okay. Chidiogo, what was your issue?
Okay, sorry. The issue is actually not because of the array, but I have a question in my task. Although I'm done, but after I did a particular, I was trying to achieve a particular kind of grid system of dividing my page, not the usual, divide it into four. This time I divided it and I wanted to subdivide it further, so I can achieve how, okay, for instance, how Jumia website is where they display some categories on the side, and when it enters the mobile, it collapses.
Yeah.
Something like that. So I wanted to know what's the best bootstrap feature to use to work on it. Like, for instance, I really tried to Google. I was seeing a lot of things like accordion. I was seeing a lot of collapse bar. I do not know which one supposed to fit into this work. But at the end of the day, I did it another way, actually, where I had to use divide my stream generally like 3:9 sort of, or rather 2:10. It gave me that effect. Okay. But at the end of the day, subsequent sections could no longer fit in, honestly. So at the point of at the end of the day, I had to remove the entire design and now use a basic design, because since it's affecting further work, I couldn't go on with it. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, I get your point. I get your point. So it's more like you want to do something like a categories on one section, and the other section, which is going to be like the rest of the screen, should take everything, right? The whole content of the site, and the little parts should just take something like category section, right? Something like that.
Exactly, and it should be collapsible too, so that in small screen can collapse and fall into,
Okay.
I saw it in a particular website, not really Jumia, but it's such that on
Yeah.
the big screen it was showing, but on a small screen it has to collapse so that the main features of the page would, be showing.
Okay. Yeah. That could actually be done. Like you could do that with JavaScript and you could do that with CSS. So I think that's something I'm actually maybe I might take out time and then explain it to you very well and show you steps on how to do that. But I think I might arrange with you and do that later.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So Victor, Alpha, what was your issue?
Okay. About the arrangement, everybody go like show for the arrangement. So
Okay, if
that's
you
aside.
want.
So my
Okay.
issue is it's about this the JavaScript. To be sincere, I have little or no experience about JavaScript, so I'm just learning. So it has actually been in a way challenging for me. Though I've tried to do research on my own, but it has been challenging. So all what we have been doing, that I've been seeing, the videos I've watched time past, has been about okay, trying to console log it on our terminal, like our console on our web browser. But I've not seen like we drawing it
Yeah.
from HTML and like that implementing, except for the last video that Ogochukwu took, right? So and it in a
Yeah.
way it was still not that clear, so it has been like very very challenging for me. Though I've done my
Oh,
assignment, so I looked for a way to work around it, but still, I still want to get the whole concept of bringing from HTML and using JavaScript to, I don't know, the manipulation there. I just want to get the whole concept. Thank you.
all right. All right. Thank you very much. Please, if anybody is actually sharing Victor's consent, please just put your hand up. If anybody is having issues with how to link HTML and JavaScript together, please just put your hands up. Okay, Omotayo, Michael, yes. Akim Bobola, yeah, all right, okay, all right, okay, so that's nice. All right, so because of, I think you guys are much, so I think I'll do that today, okay? I will show you guys how to do that today. All right, so without further ado, let's get on with the class. I think we've already eaten a little bit time. All right, so today what we'll be discussing today is local storage. So I'll also ask another question. So just indicate by raising your hands if you actually experienced that before. Okay, so you know that scenario where you go to a website and you register, and then after registering on the website, you have to close your browser, and then you come back to your browser later on, and you find out that your account on that website is still active. If you have ever encountered something like that before in website before, just put your hands up. All right, Malik. Yeah. Okay. Best. Good. Now, the thing they used to do that magic is what we'll be discussing today, and those are called web storage APIs. Now, web storage APIs are kind of like a set of mechanisms that enable the browsers to store key value pairs. So it's more like having a small database in your browser, and you could actually use that database to, store things in your browser, and then you could go back to it. If so, even if you close your browser entirely, and you open your browser again, that particular tab, when you visit that particular website, you find that your session or your details for that particular website, like you find out your account is still open there. And that is due to the web storage API. So web storage API actually has a couple of subdivisions, and it's those subdivisions that we'll be actually looking at today. We'll be looking at local storage, we're looking at local storage, but there is also session storage. So local storage is actually a web storage API, and it actually helps us do a couple of things. So as web developers that we are, local storage is kind of something that helps us to maintain a separate storage area for page sessions. All right, so what do I mean? What do I mean? So what I mean is this: local storage, it actually enables us to store some particular data in the browser, so that even if we close the browser or open the browser again, we still have access to those informations. Uh, local storage is still the same thing with session storage. They still store information. Session storage also still stores information. But just like the name goes, session storage, it means it stores the information per session. So what it means is that if you log out of the website, session storage ends. If you close the tab in which you're using a session storage, or let's say, for example, you go to a website and that website uses session storage. Once you close that tab, that session ends and session storage ends there too. But local storage is actually different. So with local storage, even if you close the tab or you close the browser, local storage doesn't end because it is stored in your browser for time immemorial, like time indefinite. So whenever you come back to that same browser, to that same website, those informations that were stored pertaining to that website actually still pops up again and they can be used. Okay. All right. So I think that's enough chat for now. Let me share my screen so we could actually do something that is a little bit of coding. All right. So sharing my screen now, and this is VS Code. So this is what we're working with. So to start with, this is the browser. And so what I wanted to do today was use what's it called? I wanted to do some things on the console too today, but because of what Victor said, I think maybe I might, do a little bit of DOM manipulation so that everyone sees how DOM manipulations work. Okay, I hope that's okay with everybody. All right, so uh, on to local storage. Now, like I said, we'll be doing a little bit of local storage today. So with pertaining to local storage, there are 5 methods that we could actually use when it comes to local storage. And those methods are actually to set item. We could set item, we could get item, we could remove item, we could clear the local storage. And then we could also retrieve a key from local storage. Now, I know this is all sounding like mumbo jumbo in your ears for now. So let me try to practicalize it a little for you guys. Before I go on, who likes food here? Like, who is a foodie here? Please, if you're a foodie, just indicate by raising your hand, because me, I like food. Ah, Chidiogo, okay. We can see all those people that like to eat well. So, what's your favorite food? Just drop something in the chat. Your favorite food. Let me just see something. Let's see. Please drop the food you can prepare. Okay. I haven't seen anything. Ah, Malik, fried yam and eggs with ketchup. Ah, oh, you have ketchup, sir. Ah, pounded yam. Oh, Victor, you're good. Uh-huh. Actually, or has soup. Ah, maybe yo. Otangari. How fun now? Okay. 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 So from this list now, let's choose which one we use to work with. Okay, let's not go too far. Let's not go too far. It's not like it's biased, but let's just use fried yam and egg with ketchup and tea, because the things that they use and cook it is not plenty. So we can just put it in an array. Abi? All right. So I will just start from there. And this is what I will do. So let's see. What are the items they use in preparing fried yam and egg sauce? Let's see. So let's say we'll create a variable. Okay, let's use let food equal to an array. Okay, first thing is one I don't blame me, I don't sabi too cook sha, but let me just try. The first thing you need is yam. Abi? You need yam. And then the next thing you need your egg, right? Good. What else will you use? You use tomatoes, Abi. And then for those who like onions, you use onions, frying your egg. They said ketchup too, so let's add the and let's put ketchup again. Ketchup, right? And then let's just say tea. Let's not go too far. So this is tea. Right, so this is our array. Okay, now let us say we want to add these items to local storage. Okay, now let's say you want to add these items to local storage so that we could actually store them in our browser. The method we actually use to do that is called set item, like it's written here, and like it says add items to local storage. So for us to do that, this is how the syntax for using local storage is actually written. So you could use it two ways. So you could either do it like this, window dot local storage dot set item. Now this method takes in two parameters. The first parameter is the key. So it's more like objects, but this time in string format. So the first parameter is the key, this is actually going to be a string, and the second parameter is the value. So let me explain. Now the key is going to be what we use to reference the value. So what I mean is, let's say we want to put this food array in local storage. I want to store it in local storage. How would we do that? We would say, okay, we could call this key and call it, let's call it food items. So we could say food items, and the value is going to be this array. So we could say food, which is the array. All right. Now, doing it this way, and let's save. Let's go back to our browser and check. Now, this is where you find once you open your console, you go down to applications, and from applications, you're going to see this storage tab. I hope you guys can see my screen. From this storage tab, you see there's local storage, there's session storage. If you click on local storage, it's actually supposed to show a list of, yeah. So once you open it, you click on it. Now you guys can actually see that there's key and there's value here, right? So this is supposed to be like food food items, and then this is supposed to be food, which is supposed to be a list of everything that's inside. But there's a problem. It is not actually showing the array, but then it's showing food. Okay. Now, the reason is this. Despite the fact that it comes in key value pairs like objects, but whenever you want to use things like strings, so whenever you want to use things like objects or arrays with local storage, there is a different way of doing it. Now, I'll get back to that soon, but first of all, I want us to be able to get conversant with using just local storage for now and setting items to it. So let's change food items. Let's change it to, let's say, yam. Let's save. Now, if you go back to the browser, see that it's changed to yam. And if you want to get an item from local storage, what we will do is say just the same way, but this time we use something different. So just like I said, we could either use local storage or window.local storage. So let's see, we could say local storage dot get item, items, and that's it. So if you save, and if you could, I'll put this in the console. We could, okay, so let me stop there for now, and let me go back here. If you understood what just happened, raise your hand, please. If you understood what I just did, put up your hands. Okay, Timmy, good. Who else understood what I just did now? Ah, only Timmy follow. Okay, who else? Okay, Mother, okay, all right, okay, good. That's nice. I like that. All right, so now you understand how to use local storage to store single items. Okay, so let's say you want to store this array now in local storage. How would we do that? There is something that's called, let me use comments to write that. It's called JSON. Who has actually come across that word before? JSON before? Okay, best. Okay, does anybody know what it means? If you know what it means, just write it in the comment. Let me see. Or if you know what it means, just say it out. Let me hear. Let everyone hear if you know what it means.
JavaScript object notation.
Very good. It's called JavaScript object notation. Now, it is actually used to store data in the database, and it's more like string formats. It's objects actually, but then it's more like string formats, objects in string formats. So all I mean by objects in string formats means that everything you see is actually put like in an object. So you will get something like this. Let's say this is an object and you want to see, let's say for example, name. Okay, sorry. I'm going to say name, My name is Frank. So if you do this in JSON format, in JSON, well, this is how JSON will actually replicate this. It's going to change it to this. We'll change it to this. Then after this, I think you have the backticks. Yeah. Okay. We're going to have another string. We're going to have backticks in this. And it's still going to change it to this again. And then this again. And you get the point. So it's actually going to just put everything in the object in strings and just save it like that. That's how this in format works. Now, and with local storage actually stores everything in strings. So if we actually wanted to put an array into local storage, what we could actually do is use a method of this JavaScript object notification, JavaScript object notation, which is called .stringify, and we pass the method before setting the item. So what do I mean? This is what I mean. So we could say, let's say we want to add food now. This array food as an item to the local storage. So what we could say, we could do this. We could say local storage dot set item. Remember, I told you you could either use local storage like this, or you could add window dot local storage. It's still the same thing. Just pick your preference, and then let's just say we'll call this food array. Okay, I think I forgot to put this in quotes. Food array. This is the key. Always remember, everything with local storage has to be in strings. So even the key has to be in strings, and then this is how we do it. We say JSON dot stringify, and then in quotes food. Okay. Now if we save this and we go back to browser and we check this out, let's go to application and check. Voila. Now we see that the food array is here. Now, if we want to get this food array back and use it, this is what we will do. We'll come down here. Okay, let's console.log this so that it shows console.log. And to do this, we would use another JSON method to get, because now local storage has to store the array as strings, everything in the array as strings. But then we want to getting the array back, to get the full array back, we have to convert it from strings back to an array. And how do we do that? We use the set item. We use set item, and then all we do is this. We have to pass it. How do we do that? We say JSON.pass, and we say local storage dot get item, and we call that get item, and that item is food array. Right, so save. Now let's check the console and see what happens. Voila, that's how it's done. So if anybody understood the magic that just happened, please raise your hands. If you understood what I just did now, raise your hands. Ah, nobody understand? Okay. Okay, at least one person understand. Thank God. Okay, two. All right. So, like I said, there are about 5 methods you could use with uh, local storage. The first one is get set item, which is like adding items to the local storage. And the second one is get item, which is like getting items from the local storage. Now, let's say you want to remove an item from local storage. Okay, like want to make sure we remove the item totally. Like, how would we do that? We use the remove item method. Now, how do we do that? This is what we do. We could say local storage dot remove item. Now, how do we remove the item? We use the key, because the key is actually what we use to reference the item in local storage. So we use the key and we say, okay, let's say we want to remove food items, which was actually yam we put there, food items, and save. Now, if you go back to the browser and check our local storage, we find out that yam has been taken out of it. Do we understand? I'm trying to take my time so that if you understand, just put up your hands so I know you guys are actually following very well. All right, that's good. Okay, good. So you guys are actually following very well, right? Okay, that's good. Now, that's basically how you use local storage. Now, let's say, for example, we also use local storage on objects too. Let's say we have a person object, so we could just say const person, or could be like equal to, and let's just say name. Name is equal to whose name are we using? Okay, let's see. Use Timi Timileyin Ijoma. All right, and let's see age. The age 20. So we could actually add this object to local storage. And how would we do that? We do it the same way we added the array to local storage, and that's by saying local storage dot set item. Let's just say person. Okay, sorry, I keep making this mistake of not putting it in a string. Now, after adding person, what's the next thing that we're supposed to do? If you guys are actually following, complete that code for me. I'm supposed to add the person object to local storage. So if you're actually following, what's the next thing I'm supposed to do here to complete this code? I want to see something in the comments. Let's see. First person to get this gets 1,000 naira airtime. Madu giveaway. Malik, are you actually asking a question or you're giving us the answer? Which one? Okay, name was best you want to put. Not necessarily, Sha. Okay, you're suggesting the answer. No, I don't want anybody to suggest the answer. I want you to give the answer. If you actually followed, give the answer. Chai. Placing a Rachel, 9-1 carry a move. Okay, I think Rachel is the first person that actually said correct. Abi, Rachel? Sorry, it's not Rachel though. No, okay, Rachel. Oh, let's go. All right. Okay, it's Rachel. Okay. Yes, Rachel is correct. So you use JSON.stringify and the name of the object. So this is how you do it. So as after writing person, like I said, it's still the same thing. Both arrays and objects, they use the same thing. So you see JSON.stringify because you have to turn the object into a string. That's why I use this stringify method, and then you put the person there. So you add person, and that's just it. Now, if you save and go back and check it out, you save and you go back and check it out, you see that the person object is now here. All right, do you guys understand now how it's actually done? Do you understand? All right, so Rachel, please give me a direct message, drop your number, I'll send you the 1000 naira airtime later. All right, so on to the next one. So if you actually did want to show this person array now, and we want to, get the person array. So this is how we'll do it. We'll say console.log, and we will say person.pass, and then we'll now add local storage dot get item, and we'll add the name of, we use the key itself, which is person, and that's it. So if we save and we go back and we check now in console.log, you see that the person object is here. Okay, so do you guys understand that now very well? Okay, so someone is saying I should check the spelling. All right. Yeah, she got it correctly. It's Jason the stringify person. All right. So okay. All right. Since you guys understand that, now let's say for example I didn't say this, but local storage has a particular amount of, okay, it has a size of what it can actually take, and the size is actually 5 megabytes. So if what you're putting in your local storage is above 5 megabytes, it will not get into local storage. Okay, and there is a way you can actually clear your local storage totally. Okay, like clear everything totally so that everything that's inside local storage goes out. And I think I'll be showing you that in a minute. Let's say you want to clear local storage and clear everything in local storage at the moment. So all we could just do is say local storage. We use the clear property or declare method. So we could say local storage dot clear, and this does not take in any methods at all. It doesn't take in any parameters, sorry. It just uses local storage dot clear and it clears everything. So if we save this and we go back and we check our local storage, we find that everything in local storage has been cleared. It's kind of simple, right? It's simple, right? Ah, okay. I'm seeing. Wait, oh, let's see. Ah, you like say give away one cause problem. Uh, okay, let me see first. Let me see who got the answer correctly the first time. Okay. But it was not Timileyin. Okay, from the chat here that I'm seeing, I'm not seeing Timileyin's hand up actually. Let me see. Let me look at the chat very well. Okay. I can't see Timileyin's answer. After the host gave the answer, I know we give host money now. Host, you already know, so I'm not going to give you anything. It was actually this the trainees actually wanted to get, so it was Timileyin that actually gave the first answer. That's why. Sorry, it was Rachel that actually gave the first answer. Okay, so that's how you use local storage. Okay, now there are actually practical ways of using local storage, which we don't necessarily have to use what's it called, console.log every time. Okay, I know you guys are tired of seeing console.log, so let's do something using the HTML. Okay, so I am going to create an input field now. Inputs and the type of text. I'll give it an ID. Call this name. Okay, and okay. All right. So I'll just call this name. I'll save, and this is what we'll do. We'll come down here.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you.
We can't see your code.
Okay, guys, can you see my screen now?
We are still on
You're
the
stuck on one
JavaScript
So
screen.
please,
tutorial.
can you do it this way? You may just stop sharing and then come back to share again.
All right, let me do that
Because we
then.
cleared it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, you guys can see my screen now, right? Can you guys see my screen now?
It's still coming up here. It is
Ah,
coming up. Franklin has started screen sharing.
Yeah, same here.
so if I change the browser, can you guys see my browser now?
Let's just wait a couple of seconds more.
Okay. So is it showing now?
It's still not showing.
Not yet.
Okay, okay, just give
Oh,
me a minute. Let me try
it's
and
doing
fix
some
that.
countdown.
Okay, just give me a few minutes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
All right, so sharing my screen. You guys can see my screen now, right?
Yes, we can. I can.
Yeah.
All right, good. So,
So
you guys didn't miss much. What I just did was that I went to index.html and I created this input field because I want to show you guys how to use DOM manipulation very well. Okay. Now, let's say we want to make sure that whatever we type in this input field gets stored in local storage. Okay. Can you hear me very well?
Yes, I can.
All right. That's good. Okay. So let's go back to our app.js and this is what we'll do. Mm, let's see. I'll just take away all of this and same. Mm, yeah, I'll just take all of this away, all of this away, and this too. Okay, this and this. All right. So now, since my JavaScript is already linked at the bottom of the page, so all I just have to do is grab this from the HTML. Now, how do we actually grab things from, how do you get an HTML element from your JavaScript? You do that using the DOM. It's called a DOM for short, but for full, it's actually a document, sorry, sorry, uh, document object model. And it's from this word, that's where you got the DOM from. So D for document, O for object, M for model. Now it's from the document object model that you use to grab the elements inside the HTML, because the HTML file is actually a document to the browser. Okay. Now, so doing that, to grab it from JavaScript, okay, let's just make a variable. So we could say const. We'll call this input. I could say the input should be equal to say document. Now there are lots of ways we could actually do that. So, but the one I like using the most is query selector. So we could use, I could just type QS and I'll get query selector. And I am targeting the ID, this ID, which is name. Now with query selector, you have to put it in quotes. So I'll say, and you have to reference it like you're referencing it in CSS. You know, with ID, it's actually a document. And this. So what we want to get from here is actually the value. So I'll actually do this step by step, and I'll show you guys how to get from the DOM and how to use JavaScript to write to the DOM. Okay. So first of all, we are getting from the DOM, and we are getting doing is working fine, and we put input there, and we check to our console.log, we see that this input is right here, the tag. Now, what we want to get is whatever it is we write in this input. Whenever we write something in this input, we want to get this text that we write in. Now, how do we do that? This text is actually called the value of the input. Okay? So, to get it, we say input dot value. Just like this, I save, and then go write something here. Just look at my console as I'm writing. You're going to see that. Okay. Okay. Seems not to be working. JavaScript has a way of just rubbing things in your face. All right, so let me try and edit this code more and make it look more readable. Okay. So I could just say let's see. Okay, let me put it in a form. But there are ways we could actually do this, and we could use a function, but okay, let's use a function instead. So using a function, we could say, we'll call the function get input. So we would say const get input equal to a function, and I want to control log the value of the inputs. So x and here. So save. So we could call this function in our HTML. We could say on change. On change, I want to call this function, and the name of the function is get input. So just copy it and paste it there. Get inputs, and we save, and we go back here. So hopefully this should work. Fingers crossed. Whenever we type, we press enter. You see that whatever it is we typed here gets added here. I hope I didn't do any magic. Do you guys understand? Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yes, yes, I can see your
All
screen.
right. Okay, so you guys understood what I just did now, right?
Yes.
All right. If there's any questions about what I just did now, you could ask. Okay, happiness. You said we should recap, right? Okay, I'll do that in a minute. So what I did was this. I went here. First thing I did, let me take this off. I'll start again. I did an input. Type text. I just said, okay, I'll give it an ID, and I'll call that ID name. Okay, save. And then I came to app.js, and the first thing I did in app.js was this. I said, I want to grab that input I just gave in app in the HTML file. I want to grab it using JavaScript. Like I want to get it using JavaScript so I could manipulate it. So first thing I did was I made a variable which I'll use to store the input field. So I called it input. You could call it whatever it is you want. I said input is equal to. Now I said the HTML document is actually, the HTML file is actually a document. So for you to actually get the document or to get something from the document, you need to reference the document. So you do that by saying document dot. Now there are many ways to actually grab things from the HTML file. Now the first one is if you grab an ID, you could say get elements by ID, and you could do it like this. Const, we call this name. I could say document dot query selector, which was the first thing I did because I like using query selector a lot. And then now I said query selector kind of uses CSS, the way CSS calls HTML elements. Now the way you actually call an HTML element in CSS, if it is an element or a class or an ID, the way you call it with CSS, that's the same way you call it using the query selector. Now, so if I wanted to get an ID using query selector, I would use the hashtag and I'll give it name. Now, to show you that these two things do the same thing, I'll console.log, typing too fast, and I'll call inputs. After calling inputs, I'll do another console.log, just paste it here, and I'll call name. Okay. Saying name is depreciated. Reset the name. Okay. Let me just say, let's change this name. Let's say 1. Call this input 1. All right. So if we save this and we go back to our browser and we check, okay. Okay, we're actually getting, okay, this is what we're getting. We get element by ID, name. Okay. Okay, it's actually giving us the input to the hashtag of name. Don't know why that is, but I'm trying to see why. Okay. Let me see. Recommend to get element by ID name. Yep, that's correct. One name. Okay, let's see something. Let's comment this out. Comment this out and save. And what do we get? Okay. Let's see. ID of name. Yeah, that's good. So let's see. Okay, so it's actually telling us that name is depreciated. So what I'll do is I'll change this ID to text. Save. I'll change this from name to text. Okay, so if I save this and I check, okay, it's actually giving us that it's an input element with an ID of text. But what I wanted to get was the HTML element itself, and I think that's why I wanted to use what's it called, query selector, to So if I want to log this and do this, text. Okay, let's see. This is trying to give me issues. I don't like stress. I'll do this again. So sorry guys, just give me some time. Sometimes JavaScript will be overbearing. All right, so let's say I do this. Let's input equal to document dot query selector. I do this name and I console.log I inputs. Okay, so it's actually giving me this element with the hashtag of name. Now let's say we wanted to get the value of this element. So all we could do is this, we could type. I think if we press enter, okay. It's actually giving us an empty string. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to put this in a function. So I said to get the value of the input element, either use this, but just using it with the console.log might not necessarily work because something has to. Input elements usually work with forms, and you have to submit the form first for the input elements to display the text. But for you to actually do that without submitting the form, you have to make sure that you grab the value of the input element once it changes. So that's actually an event. So to actually get that event when the input element changes, we could actually use a function for that. So I said, okay, I was going to use a function which was const. I said get input. You could call it whatever you want. I said equal to an anonymous function. And I grabbed the input. I said, okay, I put it in a console. I said console.log. I said inputs dot value and sorry, I save. And over the HTML side, I said on change. I wanted to get this function. I wanted this function to run whenever this input element changes. So submit and let's check this out. So whenever I type something here and I press enter, you see that whatever it is I typed here actually shows here. Do you understand? Do you guys understand what I just did now? Okay, yes, you could actually choose between let and const. Yeah, but because of I prefer using consts most of the times though. Okay, so now this is we actually getting an element the uh, from HTML using JavaScript, and we are outputting it to the console using this. Now let's say, for example, that we want to create a form. Now we're going to create a full form, and this is what we want to do. Once we submit the form, we want something to happen when we submit the form, and this is how we do it. Now let's create a form, and I think I'll integrate this using local storage, so I'll show you guys how it works. So form, I don't need form action for now. So I'll give this form a class. not because I want to style it, but I'll call this form class. I'll use the class of form. Now inside the form, I'm going to have inputs. Okay, so inputs, and this is going to be a type of text. I don't want to use name for this. I'll use ID. I'll call this name, and I'll give it a placeholder so that it's for name. Then I'll just do BR. I'm not necessarily adding a CSS to this, so we can't style the form the way we want to. And then I'll put another form here, and this is going to be a type of email. So I'm not using the name attributes. So ID, I'll give this an ID of email. I'll put a placeholder. I'll call this email. Then I'll add the PR again. And then this time, do a text area. Okay, not necessarily using the name attributes. Now, just use an ID. I'll give this an ID of message, and don't need columns. Row of 10, that should be enough. And I'll just save. And then, okay, I think just for specify all righteousness, I'll just add a button of submit, type of submit, and I'll call it submit. I'll give it an ID. Okay, there's no need for ID here. So, and I'll just save, and then I'll call it in the JavaScript. And to do that, like I said, I'll use const. Okay, const form. I'll call this variable form, or I could say my form, whatever name you want to call it. I'll get it from the document. I'll use query selector because I'm very comfortable with that. And what I'm actually getting is this form, and it's a class of form. So I'll just call it, like I said, query selector works the way you actually call with CSS. So since this is a class, I'll use .form, and I am good to go. Now to show you that this actually works, we could say console.log and say form. We save, check our HTML, we get this form.form to show that, okay, yes, this is the form. Okay, so we're actually getting the form. And now all I want to do is, I want to make sure that when we submit this form, when we submit the form, we want something to happen. Now, there is something that JavaScript does with forms. If I come here and I type a name, I could just say Frank, just say blah at mail.com and type a message. And if you click on the submit button, notice what happens. You see that the page reloads. Did anybody notice that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, so now the page reloads because this is a form, but we don't want the page to reload whenever we submit the form. And as the page reloads, it actually takes away the content of what we filled. So that's like stressing us, and it's making us start all over again. So whenever we target forms using JavaScript, we try to block all events. Okay, not like block all events. We try to block the default events of forms. Now, the default events of forms is that whenever you click on submit on a form, the form tends to reload the whole page. And that's not what we want. What we want is that once the form is submitted, get us the values of what is actually inside the input elements in the form. So how do we get that? Now we could actually say, we could write a function for that. I could call this, would say submit form, we could say const submit form equal to a function, and now this is a submit form. Now what we want to do is, okay, we want to submit this form, but rather than doing it this way, let me show you guys how to do it using JavaScript properly. So there's what we call event listeners in JavaScript, and the event listeners are things that actually listen to events from JavaScript. Now, what do I mean? Whenever you click on your HTML page, it's an event. Whenever you type something in your HTML page, it is an event. Whenever you reload your page in HTML, it is an event. Now, these events, JavaScript could actually take note of these events and know when to use these events. Now, it is with these events that we could actually get something or get an element from the HTML, and then, put it out and see how we could use it to manipulate our JavaScript, or sorry, we could use JavaScript to manipulate our HTML. Now, the way we actually do that is that, let's say we want to submit this form. Now, submitting the form is actually an event which we want JavaScript to look out for. So what do we do? So we could say my form dot add event listener, and what the event we want to listen for is the submit event, and there's a function here that we have to use, because this add event listener method takes in two parameters. The first one is the event we want to watch out for, and the second one is a function that will actually happen once the event happens. So we'll add this function, and okay, and this is it. This is how it works. This is the syntax for using the add event listener. Now we could say, once this form is submitted, we want to grab all the values of these input elements. So how do we do that? Now we go back to our HTML, sorry, not HTML, our JavaScript. I could say const, call this, would say input name, the document dot create selector. What we want to get from this is the ID of name. So we could say hashtag name, and what we want to get from this is the value of this input. Sorry, yes, so this is inputs, and then the next one. Okay, so rather than typing this all out, we could just copy and paste it. We could just change the variable names. So since this is for email, we could just say, let's just say email. I'll change
Frank,
this
your
from
screen is frozen.
my screen. Okay, frozen. Not again. Okay. Is it still frozen?
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay. I don't know why my screen is frozen. Okay, let me share again. Are you guys see my screen now?
Not yet.
It's still coming up. It's showing the adapter.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yup.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so where did you guys lose me, or where did I lose you guys?
Where the last const we added, const input name equals a document of query selector. That's where the screen started freezing.
Okay, so you can see my screen now, right?
Okay, yeah, you can
Yes.
see everything now.
All right, so I think as I did const input name, query selector name, and I said I want to get the value of the inputs. That's why I put this dot value here. Okay, now after doing this, I had to duplicate it twice because we have two other elements here, which is the email and the message. So I was in the midst of trying to change the variable name, email, like this, and this one. I'll just call this MSG. It changes from name to message dot value. Console.log these values, and I could just say start from input name, give space, input email, space again, input message. So just to be sure that everything is working fine. Okay, so going back now, let's type something and something here and something here, and let's submit and see what happens. Okay, uh, this is saying that we need to make this at mail.com. Good, and then submit. Okay, let's just say all right. So And it still happens again that once you submit the form, it actually refreshes the page. Now, this is happening because, like I said, that the default event of a form is to always refresh the page. But how can we actually walk past that? There is actually something we could do. In this form, we have to give it a parameter called E. Now, this E stands for the event, being the event that's happening, which is the fact that the form keeps refreshing itself whenever we try to submit it. Okay, so we could say E dot prevent default, and we say E dot prevent default, which means we want to prevent the default action or the default event of always refreshing whenever I want to submit the form. Do you guys understand? If you understand, let someone just say yes.
Yes.
Okay, I hope my screen is not still frozen.
No.
All right, good. All right, so after adding the prevent default method to the event parameter of the form, we could just try again. Let's see. So it's supposed to this at mail.com, and the next one, type the message, no matter how long the message is. Okay, and we could submit. Let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. Okay, so can you guys see my console very well?
Yes.
Okay, you find that from the console, the contents of this form has actually been displayed on the console because now we have actually removed that default event of always refreshing, and we were able to get the value of each of these elements and output them to the console. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, the next thing we want to do is now is take the value of these elements and put them in local storage. Okay. Now, how do we do that? Can anybody actually tell us? Can anybody actually tell us how we'll actually do that? If you can see my screen and see what I'm actually putting up here, these variable names, input name, input email, and input message. If we could actually type the code for putting these three variables in local storage, putting using your own variable names. Let's just say the first person who's actually going to do that will get also 1,000 naira airtime. So who will be the fastest fingers? Just show us how to do that. Okay, we are waiting. Okay, now I am seeing host to everyone, and I don't know who is this host. Okay, okay, this host, your name. Let's just.
It's actually showing Timilane here.
Okay, it's showing Timiline. Promise, it's showing Timiline from your side.
Yes.
Okay, All right, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe host of heaven, very funny. Okay, uh, okay. In that case, I think Milan is the person. That's for the first one. Okay. Ogechi. Sorry, Rachel, you're not fast this time around. So it says email, input email. All right. Okay, so I think we have a winner. Uh, so this supposed host is supposed to be Timilia Imba. All right, so I think that's going to be enough for the giveaway for today. So I have Timilein and Rachel because I think Timilein won it the first time, but I was thinking it was part of the host. I was thinking maybe it was promised I was trying to win giveaway. Sorry, but since it's Timilein, all right. So Timilein and Rachel, you guys just send me your number. Send me the numbers you want me to recharge the airtime to you on Slack. So I will do that for you. All right, so yes, this is exactly how we do it. Either we use this way or use it the way Rachel actually did, windows.local storage.set item, or you could just use local storage. Either way, it still works. So let's actually do that here. So we could do it this way. Let's say local storage dot set item. Actually, I think I'll just do it the way you guys actually did it here. So I think the first one. Yes, yes, you could also do that. You could also create an object for everything. So I'll just copy this and go back here and put this. Oh, sorry, not this. And there, do this. I'll call this name. Okay, I copied the whole thing. Why am I seeing something that is okay? Ah, okay. Yeah, this is correct. Yeah, this is correct. Okay, those are to verify. Okay, so we still do this and this and do this too. All right, so okay, put message. Why is it giving us an error? Oh, okay, you forgot to put comma here. Okay, so if we save this and we go back to the browser and we do something, let's try to do something more refined. Let's say, all right, let's use me. I will say PC at mail.com and we could say a message we are having a Java script tutorial. All right, so and if we submit, okay, it says input message is not defined on app.js number 13. Oh, I see. Okay, it was not message I used here. I used MSG. So we save and we go back. let's redo that again. We have Timmy. It said pc@mail.com. Like, okay, let's say we're having JavaScript tutorial, and we submit. Okay, we see that it's actually logged to the console. Let's check our local host, sorry, local storage. Now, if you check local storage, you see that we have name, email, and message here, all stored here. Now, this is good. This is everything. This shows that you guys really understand what I'm actually doing. Now, I'm actually going to show you guys one more thing, which is how to display things you've added or things you've manipulated with JavaScript in your DOM, in your HTML file. Okay, so outside the form, I'll create 3 paragraphs, and I'll put it, I'll say, let's say, call this P. I'll give it a name of, give it a class of name para. Okay, I'll just multiply it 3 times so I don't have to write it 3 times. So I'll change from name to email, and then this is going to be MSG. Okay, so nothing is actually here for now because we want to actually populate these guys using JavaScript. We want to give the content of these paragraphs using JavaScript. And the way we actually do that is by doing this. So we could say, let's get, we just put everything here. Let's add it down here too. We could say const. I'll just say, so let's just use the name of the classes for the variable names, so it's easy. Equal to document dot query selector, and want to get this. Okay, so we will actually duplicate this. So I'll just get this classes here and I'll duplicate them here too. Okay, so hope my screen is not freezing anymore. If you guys can still see my screen, see what I'm
Yes, sir.
doing.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, good. So after getting this now, we could just say, say name dots. Okay, just say name dots in a HTML. It's going to be, let's see, I'm going to use backticks for this. I'm going to use template literals. And I believe you guys actually did template literals last time Ogo held a class. So I'll say local storage. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not supposed to be like this. This is supposed to be this. Sorry. I was wondering why it was looking so foreign. All right. So it's supposed to be local storage. Good. dot get item. I'll start with name. So okay, so I'll copy this and I'll paste it, and I'll change this to email, and this is going to be email. I hope you guys can hear me loud and clear.
Yes.
All right, so this is going to be message. All right, so don't forget to put our semicolons. Yeah. All right, so saving this now, and we go back, we refresh. Now this is what we have. So we'll start again. Let's do something different. We'll just say name, Desmond, email. We'll say jondo@gmail.com. Then we could just put in some dummy text. We could just whatever it is we want to put down here. Just populate it. Good. Now let's save this. Okay, let's submit the form and see what happens. Okay, do we see the magic that just happened?
Yeah.
If you don't understand what happened, raise your hand. Okay, let me see who's raising up their hand. Taufik, you don't understand what happened. Gerald, you okay? So okay, so ask your questions. What was really confusing, Victor? Okay. Uh, okay, let me start with Victor because Victor was the main reason why we had to do DOM manipulation today. So Victor, what's the issue exactly?
Nothing quite big actually, because I notice anytime we use the inner HTML,
Yes.
it's on the main page. It shows on the main page. So I just want you to just give me a more clearer and cleaner version of an explanation so I can grab it more. That's just it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, and then apart from Victor Horse, Gerard, right? Yes, Gerald. What was your question, or what was actually
Good.
confusing you?
When you did the first one, I tried doing it. Maybe I made a mistake somewhere, so it did not display. But after this one, it's showing on your browser and on the console part too. I don't know why it's showing like
Yes.
that.
Okay, so I'll explain that. Okay. Who else? Hey, yes. Okay, ask a question. Ajibade.
All right, thank you very much. I can see from
Yeah.
the JavaScript page, we have written
Yes.
const 2 times. One has dot value, the other one doesn't have it.
Yes.
What
Yes,
actually
that's true.
informs that?
Okay. All right. So I'll explain this little by little for you guys. All right. So let's see. Where do we start from? Okay, let's start with this dot value. Now the thing is this: whenever we work with forms, input elements, text area, select, these are forms, and the way they work with JavaScript, you have to get the value of those you have to get their value because uh, whenever whenever you create an HTML element, these input elements actually come blank. So you definitely have to type something inside the input element first before the browser will actually know that okay, something is being typed here. Now, the way you actually get what is being typed inside the input element is using that value, using this value at the end. So it's more like saying, I want to get this input element with the name or with the ID of name.
Leave your
And then
phone.
I want to get, can you hear me?
You leave your phone.
Yes,
You
yes,
do
yes,
it.
I can hear you.
All
You
right,
dey go.
sorry. So whose mic is on? Should please turn his mic off. Okay, so like I was saying, you want to get the input element. You want to get this input element that has the ID of name. So using a query selector, you could see document of query selector gets this input element with the ID of name. And not just getting the input element, you want to get the value. Now, this value is what you have typed inside here. If you don't type anything inside here and you get the value, what you will get is an empty string. So it's like it's just going to get empty, you're just going to get something that's empty. There's nothing that's going to be displayed on the console or on the browser from here. So that's what this value is for. It's for getting, like the name implies, the value of the input. And it actually works for input elements and text area. So if you notice, I used it only for input elements and text area here. I didn't use it for the paragraph at all, if you notice very well. So I think the person who asked this question was
I'm the
Ajibade.
one.
Ajibade,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, I can
So
respond now.
does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So Gerald, your question was how I actually made the text to show, Abi? Was that how I
Yes,
actually made the text to show on the console and to show here, right? That was your question, right?
yes, that was my question.
All right, good. Now, to answer your question, I think this is what I did. So I said, once the form is submitted, we grab this. This is the paragraphs. Okay, these are the paragraphs I made. You can see my screen, right? I gave them a class. I called this name para, email para, MSG para, just random name conventions. And then I said, grab the paragraph or grab the elements with the class of this, which is what I just did here. And like I did at the top, I said grab the input elements with the ID of name, email, and message, and set them to local storage, put them as local storage items. So I set items, the name input, this is it, the email input, this is it, and the message input, this is it here too. So after putting in local storage, I also said log it to the console, which is what I did. Gerald, are you following? Are you following me?
Yes, I'm following you.
All right. So if, as I'm explaining, anywhere that's actually confusing for you, you could just call me back. Okay. So logging these items to the console and setting them to local storage, that was how it was able to show here. When you log it to the console, whatever the input, whatever the value of this input was logged to this console. That's why I have this one here. And that was the same thing we actually logged to local storage here. So what I did to make it show here was get these items, these local storage items. I took them from local storage and set them here. So how did I do that? I said getting this inner HTML is one of the methods in which you could use in JavaScript to write to your HTML file from JavaScript. So like the name implies, inner HTML. So instead of writing, so this is what should be inside the HTML. I could, and in as well, change it to something else, which is called text content. And they are almost the same thing. The only difference is that text content will only work for something that has to do with text format, which is still the same perspective here, just the text. But with inner HTML, I could still input another HTML element inside the paragraph if I wanted to. I don't know if you understand. That's like basically how inner HTML works. So it's like saying, okay, grab this paragraph, which is this name para, and inside it, I want you to input this inside the paragraph. So what we wanted to input is what we got from local storage, which is to get the name key of the local storage item that we just set, which was going to be the value of this input field. Gerald, do you understand?
Yes, I do. I do understand now.
All right, good. Okay, I
Thanks.
think we still have, yeah. So back to Victor. Victor, your question was why we use inner HTML or Abby? Victor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so your question was why we use what's it called? Why we use inner HTML, Abby?
Yes. It's basically what you just
Okay,
asked, but I just want a general overview of it again.
okay. So the reason why we use inner HTML, okay, just like what I explained to Gerald, is because inner HTML is one of the ways we use to input elements into the HTML from JavaScript. There are a couple of them. There is text content. Text content works with content like text a lot. Anything that has to do with write up, that's what text content works with. But inner HTML, I could input an HTML element inside the paragraph using inner HTML. I think all I just have to do is just state what I want to do. Okay, so I could do this. I don't know if this is going to confuse you guys, but using template literals, I could literally put an HTML element inside here. I just want to show you that this is not the only way. Inner HTML is not just for text alone. So I could do this and close. And if I save this and I come here, okay, let's see, let's do this again. I could just use something different and write anything inside. And once I submit this, now if we come down here, if you come to our input element, this paragraph, and we inspect it, we see that there's a div here. And this div is coming because I added this div here. So I don't know if anybody actually understood this or it's confusing. Did you guys understand this or it's kind of confusing? Hello? Okay, Timilane, you have a question. What's your question?
Yeah, sorry. Good. I wanted to ask if I like the way you updated the form now. If you update the form,
Yes.
the local, is it going to take the previous key values and the key and values away and update? Going to add?
Yes, it is actually going to take the previous ones away and add to it. That's because in our code we say that we always want to set the name key to the value of the input field. So whatever is the value of the input field, that's what's actually going to be updated there. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. If there are no more questions, I think our time is up already. I don't want to eat up much time. So this is where we'll draw the curtain for today's class. I wanted to touch on arrays, but I think we might have to schedule another class for that, maybe within the week, so that we could touch on arrays very well, so that you guys will actually understand arrays very well. Because as a front-end web developer, you need to know how to manipulate arrays, because most times what you do will definitely come as arrays, and you definitely have to know how to use arrays and manipulate arrays very well. But nevertheless, local storage is also important. So today's class was not a waste. I think today was actually eventful. So just to wrap up, I think from today you guys were able to understand how to use local storage very well, Abby. Someone could just give me a response so I know I'm
Yes,
doing
yes,
something.
yes, yes. That was me
All
too.
right. And yes, and I also know how to grab elements from the HTML using JavaScript, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and you also know how to input text to HTML using JavaScript, right?
Yes.
All right, very good. I think then something has been accomplished today. So within the week, we also set another class which will explain arrays very well. Okay.
Okay, sir.
All right then. Okay, so that's going to be that from me. That's going to be all from me. Yeah. So signing out. I think I can stop sharing my screen now. All right, so I think that's going to be that for now.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. All right, so I think I'm going to hand over back to IK now. So if he has one or two things to say before the class ends. Okay, so I think if there's nothing else, I think I'll just end. The class will just be ended for now. If there's nothing else to say.